This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, as always, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Fresh off his trip, we teased it last time. My man finally went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He got to see very limited line stuff, but a whole bunch of NFL memorabilia, great things, and he saw the Goff jersey, number 16, for the Lions, and a Stafford jersey. I know he didn't buy himself a Ram Stafford jersey, did you?
No, hell no. Burn that. Burn it all. You can burn the golf one, too. That was so weird. When I was walking through they have like this monstrous room where they just sell everything. And I was like just kind of bumbling around, and my girlfriend went with me, and she comes running up to me. She's like, they've got a Jared Goff jersey. I was like, does it look weird? She was like, it's the strangest thing I've ever seen. And I walked over to it, and I was like, oh, my God, that is so freaky. She's like, they got a Stafford one around here somewhere. And I found the Stafford one, and I was like, it's just weird. It's so different to see it. Like, you know what it looks like, and you know it's coming. But until you actually see it up close and in person, it is strange. Like, it's going to be so weird to see Jared Goff under center this year. It's just going to boggle your mind a little bit, because for a lot of people, you know, I do a show with Brendan Riley. Brendan Riley, the only quarterback he remembers is Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford's been here so long. He's been such a fixture of the Detroit Lions and the Detroit sports scene. It's so weird to now think of him as a Los Angeles Ram. So weird to see Jared Goff wearing that Lions jersey. You know, you and I, we're older. We've seen everybody. We've seen Scott Mitchell. We've seen Charlie Batch. I remember Eric Kramer. I don't know if you do. We've seen all these guys. You know, we've lived through this. So it shouldn't be as jarring, but it was pretty jarring to me, and I thought it was weird. That's why I had to send that tweet out. It was so strange to me. Now, the Football Hall of Fame, you get a chance. Take a trip to Canton, and like take like a day trip to Canton. Maybe make it a weekend, because there's a whole lot to do in the city of Canton. There's a whole bunch of stuff to do. I didn't get to do nearly as much as I wanted, and we didn't get to see nearly as much as I wanted. But there's a lot going on there. On top of it, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it's like about 4.5 hours to get through the whole thing. They've got a lot of really cool exhibits. I wouldn't say they're necessarily interactive, but they do have some interactive spots. But for the most part, it's just this girth of football memorabilia. It gives you a nice history about the league. It tells you basically how it started. If you're a Detroit Lions fan like I am, it's really weird to see this team, the Portsmouth Spartans. That's who the Detroit Lions came from. That was their original team until they evolved into the Detroit Lions. So it's weird to see that history, and it's weird. They have this gigantic, basically it's like a chalkboard, and it shows from the inception of what was the NFL to the present day. It shows everybody's record, and it basically tells if you win or lost. Basically, after 57, the Lions have a whole lot of nothing. It was so depressing. If you go as a Lions fan, prepare to be depressed. And as I was walking around, I think I ended up messaging you. I told you that I just don't have the same feelings for Calvin Johnson anymore. Like, they do this whole exhibit with the sports science that ESPN used to do. They do this cool little breakdown. You can click on it. You can see all the things that Calvin Johnson could do, and how he was this elite athlete, and how he was incredible at basically everything he did. And if you're a Lions fan, it just kind of leaves you scratching your head and scratching your ass like, how did we not win more? Like, how? So this guy has a catch radius that is as wide as a 2-car garage. Imagine standing in front of your 2-car garage, and all the way around you, from the cement all the way up top, all the way down to the other side. That's his catch radius. You throw a ball anywhere in that vicinity, he's coming down with it. They talked about his hand size, how quick he was. I mean, the guy basically ran as fast as Javed Best, who was a running back. And this is a guy who is almost 75 pounds heavier than him. He was a gazelle. He was a freak of nature. And yet they didn't win more. You also on that team had a quarterback that you just got multiple first-round draft picks for. A guy who, according to ESPN and according to a bunch of other people around the league, he's a top 6 quarterback. I mean, you don't believe that, but that's what they say. And for a couple of those years, he did have an okay defense. He had a pretty good defense, actually. It was a top 5 and a top 10 defense 2 of those years. Yet they didn't win anything. It's so frustrating going there as a Lions fan because it's just depressing to see these different areas built up for the Patriots, for teams like the Steelers, teams like the 49ers. You even have stuff for the Jets, you know? Like, and the Jets are a loser organization. It's just weird to me to go as a Lions fan and it was upsetting, actually. There was a point where I looked at my stepdad and I was like, this sucks. And he was like, what do you mean? Like, he was like taken aback and he was a little upset that I said that. And I was like, this is cool, but this sucks as a Lions fan. And he's like, kind of looked at me with a acquisitive look and I was like, there's nothing here for us. There's nothing. They had like a jacket that belonged to, I don't remember, it might have been Lem Barney's. I don't know. It was just a jacket and they were like, oh, Lem Barney used to wear this. And that was it. Like it was so sad because there was hardly anything really dedicated to the Detroit Lions. It was like random, like one-off things. It was strange, man. It was really, really weird and it was kind of sad.
Yeah, that was my experience too. I really enjoyed everything, but then you just harken back to the Lions, and you wonder, will Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes rewrite history and be able to move things forward and be able to kind of take the attitude and perception of the Lions as being losers to being winners. I mean, look at all the rankings. I mean, you had the roster ranked 31st. You had the head coach ranked 31st. ESPN even had the gall, and we'll talk about it, to rank the offensive line in the bottom third, bottom tier offensive line, but their metrics were way off. So you look at it, and the perception is still that the Detroit Lions are building and that everybody has taken a wait-and-see approach. And I know you're upset at seeing a lot of the low rankings, but let me tell you this in regards to what really frustrated you was the 3-year projection that ESPN did. And in essence, what they did was they were looking for some content to kind of, fill out before training camp, before things get going. And what they did was they projected what teams are going to look like in terms of their ranking, not only this year, but for the next 3 seasons. And unfortunately, for the Lions, they're still at 31. They started at 31 and they ended at 31, which makes no sense because if you look at Brad Holmes and what he was able to do, to think that the Lions are going to stay pat and not move up, I think is lazy. You felt it was lazy. I think it was infuriating. But if you put yourself in other people's shoes, and remember, we've talked about other analysts that have ranked the Lions really low. I mean, half the city was outraged when certain analysts, I think Nate Davis one year, had the Lions winning 3 games, and they in fact won 3 games. A Bears reporter at NFL Network last year riled everybody up when he said the Lions were going to win 4 games, and they won 5. So the national media are not fans of the Lions, and nor should they be. They take the stance that, hey, the Lions have been losers, and you could parade anybody. You could parade George Halas, Vince Lombardi. Anybody could roam the sidelines for the Lions. And according to the national media, there won't be much change. I don't agree with it. I think the Lions at least will have some sense of growth. Maybe not the ultimate level of success, but I don't think the Lions, even myself, one of the critics, cynics, doesn't think the Lions are going to be 31 this year, next year, and the year after. 3-year projection at 31? I think you and I think it's bullshit.
Look here, I think it was just lazy. I think it was garbage writing. I think this was just ESPN kind of throwing a wet blanket over the NFL, throwing a sexy headline on it, and then trying to get clicks is what I really feel like it was. For you to not do any analysis, and I get it, the national media isn't as invested in this team as guys like you and me, guys who work in the city and who cover this team regularly, guys like you, guys like Vito. They're not as invested as we are because they're not here for the day-to-day. But to go out there and basically say in the next 3 years, this team is going to basically be at the same exact spot that it is currently, I think is, one, short-sighted, and two, I think it's criminal. You can't say that when you have a team that has a bunch of draft capital going into next season. You can't say that when you have a team that obviously has a different general manager, a guy who has a pedigree. Now, I get that there's some question marks with Dan Campbell. I understand that. You understand that. All right? But those question marks, I don't think, negate anything that can get done by Brad Holmes. Also, you can't tell me that this team doesn't have one of the better offensive lines in the league. Now, how that translates to wins, I don't know if it's going to translate to wins this year. But I think down the stretch, by the time year 3 rolls around, that's going to help contribute to a couple more W's than it is losses. All right? Look, we both agree their wide receiving core is piss poor right now. We both agree that Jared Goff is basically temporary. He's a Band-Aid. All right? This team's going to get its quarterback because they're not going to win next season. I think for you to put a 3-year perspective, the second worst in the league in 3 years, basically where they're at right now, is just foolhardy. I think it's just bad. I think it's bad writing. There's so many good things going for this team. One, new general manager who has that pedigree, like I mentioned before, able to pull off one of the best trades in the NFL this past season. Also, making it extremely hard for a team like Green Bay to move on from a guy like Aaron Rodgers because the bar has been set. If Matt Stafford fetches this, Aaron Rodgers needs to fetch that plus more. It's part of the reason Aaron Rodgers hasn't been able to move on. It's part of the reason why Aaron Rodgers might sit out this upcoming season. All right? Now, you can look at that offensive line, which just got better this year with the draft. I think you've got some good pieces on this team for the roster. I think guys like Jeff Okudah, I think they take a step forward. I think you've got guys on defense who are going to get put into different spots and are going to excel. You can't tell me, looking at this coaching staff, that this coaching staff doesn't make you a little bit excited. I'm not talking about Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, I get. Bit of a question mark. We're not sure what we're going to get there. But you've got so many guys with so much experience across the board on this coaching staff that it's going to help uplift a guy like Dan Campbell when he's falling short. And I'm not trying to be super positive here. All right, their wide receiving core sucks. All right, you've got maybe one or two guys who would maybe be a third wide receiver on a really good team. All right, their running back core looks pretty decent, and that's just the offensive side of the ball. All right, defensively, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with guys like Trey Flowers. I don't think he's going to work out. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with this linebacking core. You got to remember too, you're switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4. It's going to take a little bit of adjusting. But I think in 3 years, this team will be more middle of the pack than they will be last in the league. And I think ESPN is just a bunch of boner jams.
Yeah. Okay, what are the odds that, let's just say, I think the odds are quite low that it's just going to be an abject failure, right? Like, yeah. I think that has to be the starting point, is that I think based on, and here's the thing too, I don't think the national media went back and rewatched all 12 games of Dan Campbell coaching the Miami Dolphins. Dude, that team looked hungry. That team looked like they were enthused. Ryan Tannehill played great. The first 2 games, if you went back and checked out my review, because I did. I love the fact that you can watch Game Pass and watch old games at a good rate for 45 minutes. I think that Dan Campbell has a mentality that could win in the National Football League. Now, could it win at the highest level? That's yet to be determined, because it's going to take growth, because, you know, when he faced off against Bill Belichick, yeah, he got outclassed, and he put a hurting on a couple teams, the Titans and the Texans, and then when he faced off against the class of the league, they tried to run the football, and it was a joke. But he's going to run the football. He's going to try to play ball possession, and he's going to try to harness the strengths of the team that he has. So if you just paid attention and watched, if you were lazy and just watched 3 games, you saw, prior to Cameron Wake's injury, you saw a defense that was getting after it. You saw Lamar Miller running through and getting holes, and Ryan Tannehill making plays. You saw a team that was hungry and getting sacks. Unfortunately, the Dolphins lost their best defender, and he was done for the year after a couple games with Dan Campbell. But yeah, I don't think it's an abject failure. I think the thing we're going to be talking about is getting to the playoffs enough. I think that's going to be one of the legitimate storylines in a couple years. He'll get to the playoffs, he'll tease it, and then you realize, oh, just short. Oh, just came up short against the Vikings. Oh, just came up short against Seattle. And then we're going to have that talk like, man, it's good, it's different, it's not like others, but we want winners. And I think that's going to be one of the first narratives we see, because Dan Campbell is likable, and I think the players are going to be good enough to take the next step. So, yeah, it's absolutely embarrassing that they put it out like that. I mean, at least make it 22 or 24, you know? So I think ESPN took the lazy route, and I agree with you.
I think what you said is pretty interesting, though. You think that it's not going to be good enough just to get to the playoffs. There's going to be the want for more, the need for more. Which, if that's the case,
listen, there is a growing fanboy network going on here where it's like, oh my God, we got to the playoffs. But I think by and large that hardcore fans that are waiting are going to have their hands folded and say, look, we've seen this before. We've seen teams, you know, Stafford got there 3 times. We want to see advancement, NFC title games. I think the critics will be silenced. The strong 40% that hate on the Lions will be quiet if they make the NFC title. Even if the first step, if you win a playoff game, will quiet some people, but just winning playoff games is not enough. That's what every franchise can do. We want to win it all. Real hardcore sports fans don't just want to show up to the dance. We want to win the whole damn thing.
I think what you're saying too, I think it bodes well for this team. You've got a guy like Aaron Rodgers who obviously coming to the twilight of his career doesn't want to be in Green Bay anymore. It's blatantly obvious at this point. Report came out earlier this week that they offered, they tried to extend him 2 more years and make him the highest paid player in the NFL, and he said no. I don't know what more you want if you're Green Bay. They're trying to back a Brinks truck up to the guy, and he's like, no, get this out of here. I want out. So I think Green Bay is going to be going through some changes here very soon. You've got a team like the Minnesota Vikings who have a lot of really good pieces, but I don't know about you. Do you trust their quarterback? I mean, like, look, you love Kirk Cousins because of what he did for Michigan State. I think Kirk Cousins is an interesting fantasy option every week because he could throw you 4 touchdowns or he could throw you 4 interceptions. You really don't know what you're going to get. He's very Jekyll and Hyde. And then you look at the Chicago Bears. Nobody really knows what's going on with the Chicago Bears. Is Justin Fields going to be that guy? This is the first time that they've ever really invested, can we say, well, in what could possibly be a good quarterback. I mean, you have a cap structure that is basically swallowed up by large chunks of your defense, which makes it hard for you to do anything offensively. So you have all these teams in this division all kind of going through different things, and they're all at different points in their I don't know, I guess their journey to win the division. I think for the Lions, though, this bodes well because you've got your biggest roadblock, Green Bay, kind of going to be having to hit the reset button here very soon. I don't think anybody feels threatened by the Chicago Bears. I don't think anybody really feels threatened by Minnesota. Yeah, I know they win sometimes, but they're not really a threat. They haven't been able to put it all together and figure it all out. So I think what you're going to see going forward is similar to what you said. You've got a team that will probably break into the playoffs, and I expect that by the time year 3 rolls around. So that doesn't mean that they're the 31st team in the NFL. That means that they're a top 14 team in the NFL, a top 10 team in the NFL. I also think that they might have a chance to win a division in probably 4 years, which is really, really nice. I mean, when was the last time we could say that, you know?
Now, for those that are listening, you'll get the inside scoop. Dan Campbell wants to get things done early. Practices are going to be in the AM starting on Wednesday. So make sure you stick and stay. Pay attention to SI All Lions. Pay attention to the Detroit Sports Podcast. We have our foots on the ground. I'll be there, and I'll be covering the first week or so, and then very heavily the majority of training camp. Look, I'm not going to be there all 6 days every single morning, but I'll be there probably 5 out of 6 mornings, and it's going to be early. So wake up, get your coffee, read Detroit, read SI All Lions, and pay attention to the Detroit Sports Podcast. Before we turn our attention to the Tigers, what are one or two things you absolutely are honing in on and you need me to just bring to the masses? Because we all know what Jared Goff looks like. Does Jamal Williams compete with DeAndre Swift for touches? How does that defense look? How do the rookies look? All that we will bring to you. Anything that goes down, I'm all over it. And thank you guys for, I'm truly humbled that you're even reading stuff that I'm writing not Detroit sports related in regards to the NBA. It makes it fun to see that I can talk about Giannis winning the title. I can talk about all that stuff and you guys support it. But what do you need to see? What can I do to entertain you, my man? Because I know that if I'm entertaining you, I know I'll be delivering to the masses.
I want to know what this wide receiving core looks like. Who is, look.
It looks like shit, cuz, I get enough talent.
I get it. But I want to know who the top dog is. You got guys that they went out during free agency and brought in, and then you've got a couple guys that they drafted, and you've got some homegrown talent here with a couple of other guys. I want to know who you think is going to be the lead wide receiver from what you're getting from training camp. Because, we both agree it's not good. But who's going to be the guy that steps up out of that group and really takes the bull by the horns?
Absolutely. We'll do that. Here's the problem, though. The receivers are going to look damn awesome, damn fine in training camp because they're going to be going up against Amani Oruwariye, Jeff Okudah, and his core muscles that were repaired. He's going to be going up against a rookie in Ifeatu Melifonwu. He's going to be these receivers are going to be yes, all the coverage is going to be great. Oh my God, the wide receivers are turned around. The new reporter, Danny Rogers, is going to go up to Tyrell Williams. Tyrell, you've had such a great training camp and you're catching balls left and right. You're oohing and ahhing and everybody, the fanboys are like, yes, this is awesome. I will definitely dive deeper into what I'm seeing in regards to the wide receivers because yes, every catch will be highlighted. Every catch that's against the Lions secondary will be highlighted. And remember, fanboys, the 2008 Lions went 4-0 in the preseason, and they went 0-16. So pipe down, stop, creaming your pants whenever you see a great play in the preseason. We'll keep it real, and we'll definitely tell you what we see, and we'll bring the noise here at SIL Lions and the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. The wide receivers, look, the best wide receiver is going to be TJ Hawkinson. It's going to be Hawkinson.
Oh, for sure. You already know that. But here's something else. Whoever is lined up against Okudah, they better not catch anything. I need to see Jeff Okudah shut these guys down.
I need Okudah to fight someone. Exactly. I don't need Okudah going down and getting burned by Amon-Ra St. Brown or looking lost. Absolutely. They have to look like they know what they're doing. But yeah, it's going to be early. It's going to be Doc in the coffee. My God. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSGROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. And make sure you're getting in the mix. Hit that subscribe button. That's how you get our daily content. That's how you get to listen to all the great podcasts with great influencers, Detroit sports figures, and to hear the real breakdown of Detroit sports. All right, cuz now a team that is turning it around. A team that's playing, like we said, taking advantage of playing the shit teams. The Detroit Tigers, I think, are playing a good brand of baseball. You're starting to see the influence of A.J. Hinch, the manager, Chris Fetter, the pitching coach. Unfortunately, though, they got a bit of bad news. Spencer Turnbull down now for the better part of a year and a half with Tommy John surgery. It's a real shame, too, because he had his highlight, the no-hitter, earlier this year. But something interesting happened. And make sure you pay attention to the Tigers. I had a chance to take the father-in-law out there as the Tigers put a hurting on the Twins. Great atmosphere. Nice to hear the crowd. Got some good seats and treated the father-in-law who's been on a vacation. So I got him out there and we enjoyed ourselves. Had some peanuts and beer and really enjoyed a hot summer Sunday and enjoyed the Tigers. But I'll say this. Avila raised some eyebrows earlier this week when he came out and told the media the Tigers are not rebuilding anymore. And it's kind of a little bit head-scratching going, what does that mean? Does that mean you finally reached in Chris Ilitch's pockets and found something? It doesn't really align just yet because of the fact that the Tigers are still under 500, even though they're whooping ass and taking names against the shitty teams in Major League Baseball. I'll say this, and I know that most sports teams don't act as if they're irrelevant. They don't act as if they don't know what's going on, what people are saying. This reeks of somebody going to Al and just going to him and saying, look, tell these people we got some fans back. Tell them that we know that they think we're cheap. They know that we think we're going to sell. Just go tell them that we're not rebuilding anymore. What are you talking about? Of course you're still rebuilding. You have to add more talent. You can't just go out there and win with Torkelson and Riley Green and these pitchers. You have to add like 3 more pieces. Hence, you are building still. Now, what he really kind of meant to say was potentially, and I think it's good, is that the Tigers aren't going to be unloading a heck of a lot of talent. And that is good. I think that that's fair. Now, maybe if the price is right, you could get something for Scope. You could get something for one of your relievers. But I think what they're saying is that they're not sellers. They're not going to be a team that is going to just unload for draft picks. They're going to try to win and add to this roster. And I think that's great because they are poised. I think Al knows something that we don't, in that he's starting to see the fruits of his labor. He's starting to see that, hey, you know what? Maybe I found something in Akil Baddoo. Maybe I found something in this manager that was a reclamation project who was cast away because he cheated. Maybe that, hey, a couple more arms to surround Mize and Skubal. Maybe, the likes of Green and Torkelson come up and you surround them with some young, hungry talent and 1 or 2 more veterans. I think you're starting to see the beginning of at least a team that's not going to be a bottom dweller. That's what I see. I see a team that tries, that can lose 4 games and then come right back and win 4 games. That's the sign of a team that's confident. But
that doesn't mean that you're not rebuilding anymore.
Well, see, rebuilding means you're selling. I think that's the tie that people are making. They are still building, but I think the word rebuild kind of has a connotation of like, we're going to tank now. I think this might be the last year they're the number 3 pick for the foreseeable future. I think
that might be, but here's the thing. You can look at this roster, and there's at least 9 holes on this roster. There's at least 9 different spots on this team that are going to be up for bid. So you can't tell me that you're not rebuilding. Like, who's your shortstop of the future? Unless Chris Ilitch, and look, this might be the case. Maybe Al Avila and Chris have talked about it. But until I see otherwise, unless Chris Ilitch is going out there and breaking open the checkbook and signing checks and bringing guys here, which he hasn't done, this roster has been gutted to help do it all on the cheap. And once Miguel Cabrera's contract comes off, that eats up approximately, I think, 60, maybe 70% of the salary cap on this team. Like, they'd be one of the lowest salary cap teams in all of Major League Baseball. Until Chris Ilitch opens up the checkbook and starts writing these checks, I do not believe that this team is building, as Al said. This team is still stuck in rebuild mode. You have Casey Mize and you have Tarek Skubal. Who do you really have after that as far as your pitching goes? Because Matt Manning's kind of a work in progress. Nobody really knows what he is. If anything, he could possibly be trade bait. Spencer Turnbull was, to me, like the cutoff guy, right? Like, if you wanted to trade him away, I'd have been okay with it because of what you could have got for him. If you wanted to keep him, I would have listened to that argument too. And I would have had no qualms with you doing either one of those things. But unless you're Spencer Turnbull or you're doing things that Spencer Turnbull can do, there's really no reason for you to be on this pitching staff right now. There's no need. Because you're not winning anything. This team is still in rebuild mode. You've got too many pieces that are fluctuating and too many guys that don't necessarily need to be here. Like, do you mean to tell me that Scope is what, your second baseman of the future? Like, is that what you're telling me? Is he going to be your guy?
Yeah, it's when you look at the Tigers, you make a great point in regards to the holes. You looked at it and you say, okay, Zach Short's not going to cut it. I think Jeimer Candelario, he comes in spurts, but it's so weird, his inconsistency with his bat. I think he can play, second base, shortstop. He can play third base as well. But I think, long term, it's tough because you look at the long term potential of this team. Who's going to be on this roster? Who is going to be here in 5 years when this is good? And so to say that, I understand where you're coming from and why it raised your eyebrows, because it doesn't make sense. You're still building. You're still at the point where you need a lot more pieces to be competitive. But you know what these teams do, which I think is interesting? They take advantage of the fact that the fans are starving for success. So and it's true. And I think for us, you and I would be considered hardcore. We would be considered day-to-day, locked in, reading everything, all about all the teams. Most people are more casual than you and I are. And they're like, okay, the Tigers, they suck. Okay, they're at the number 1 spot. All right, let's tune them out. And if Avila says, we're not rebuilding anymore, Al in Southfield is like, all right, we ain't bottom dwellers anymore. Come on, Tino, we're going to get out there to Comerica Park and buy some beers, and we're going to go check out this team. Oh, look, they got some wins. And we're going to, this team don't look so bad. And they go back, and they're all happy. And a 75-win season looks like they won the fucking World Series. Whereas you and I are like
that's part of the problem, though, right?
Right, exactly.
Because the team's been so damn bad. Exactly.
The problem is fans are not as hardcore to press these teams to win championships. They'll be happy. That they'll fucking throw a parade and have like beers celebrated if the team makes the postseason. Whereas you and I were like, dude, we fucking saw them get in the World Series and they went cold. You know what I mean? So that's where we got to also put ourselves in the casual fan's perspective, where Al Avila's not talking to you and I. Because once he looks at us, we take our glasses off and go, all right, spare me the bullshit and tell me the truth here. What the fuck is going on here? Why do you got 2 pitchers and you guys are throwing Jose Urena out there every 4th day and trying to sell us that this guy's going to do anything? But the casual fan looks at it and goes, oh my God, we're winning against the Rangers. So I think that the casual fan loves this and loves the ovation. They love to see everything going on. So it's just a fascinating look at how fans and casual fans handle everything.
I don't know. I feel like the commentary by Al Avila, I feel like he was going out trying to silence a few people, but he does this all the time. He just opens his mouth and inserts his foot. Like, do you remember when they're trying to trade Nick Castellanos? Oh, trading Nick's gonna be hard. Nobody has any interest in Nick. And like, you just cut your own legs out. I feel like he did the same thing here. Like, we're not rebuilding anymore. We're building. No, man, you're still rebuilding. Like, you don't have enough pieces. Like, Derek Hill is not your center fielder of the future. Like, are you going to trust a guy who's basically played 12, 13 games to be that guy? No, I don't think you are. Like, you don't have a shortstop on this team. Is Akil Baddoo the real deal? Like, is he? Nobody really knows. It's been 75 games, 76 games that he's played, and he's done okay. But, like, is that a guy that you build your future around? You can't sell me on that right now. You can't. Look, a guy like Nico Goodrum, that's another good story. Cool. Good story. Like, these aren't, like, if you compared this team's roster to a roster like the Chicago White Sox, you would be floored. You'd be embarrassed. You'd be like, yeah, you're right. We are nowhere near where they're at. And like, the White Sox are the team that you have to contend with in this division. So like, until you start beating them, I don't want to hear this. I feel like Al Avila he's kind of like a young kid in school when a teacher calls on him, he didn't do his homework, and he doesn't really have the answer, and he just kind of fumbles around and just kind of mutters and stutters and says a whole bunch of stuff that's unnecessary. Like, if you're going to, like, don't come out and say this shit. Like, just don't. Because you're not there. You're so far removed from everything. You're so not there. Like, I get that Baseball America likes your minor league system. You haven't been able to produce a whole lot of anything. If you're going to hang your hat on Casey Mize, cool. I know a one-legged cat with one eye that could have picked Casey Mize in that draft. You can't tell me that's well, look what I did with Casey Mize. No, it doesn't work like that. That doesn't work at all. I want to know who you're getting in the 3rd round that you're turning into a star. Al Avila's track record is so poor. For him to come out and say this and for fans to buy this, one, you're stupid. Like, I'm just going to tell you, you're stupid. Like, just don't buy this. 2, take a critical look at this roster and tell me which guys you want to re-sign next year. Is Jonathan Scope a guy that you want to re-sign next year? Is Akil Baddoo a guy that you want to re-sign next year? Are you running to break out the checkbook for a guy like Jammer Candelario? Isaac Paredes? Is he your guy? Jake Rogers? Eric Haas? Like, both those guys, I like both of them. And I think they've come up with some pretty clutch plays during different win streaks that the Lions have had. But they're just guys. They're just guys. And this is something I learned a long time ago. when you have a bad roster, you have to have guys making plays, right? What was Numbnuts, who the Wings picked up from Florida? He was a hockey player, he was a center. I don't even remember his name. They picked him up from the Florida Panthers, and they brought him to Detroit, and he was supposed to be this guy who was going to be able to score you 20 and 30 goals a season, and he had like 10. And it was a ridiculous contract that Ken Holland signed him to. Here's the thing. The Florida Panthers back in the day were a really bad team. When this guy is centering your number one line, he's getting all the ice time. He has all the potential in the world to put 20 and 30 and 40 pucks in the back of the net. When he comes to this team and he's not good enough to crack your top 7, 8 guys at forward, he's going to be moved down, and he doesn't take advantage of that time. He doesn't score a whole lot. When you play on bad rosters and you get the time, you're going to do good things. And look, I'm not saying that this is a bad team, because I think what A.J. Hinch has done has been great. And I think a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. I think this is a bad roster. I don't think it's a very good roster. I don't think you have a lot of talent on this roster right yet. I do think it is in rebuild mode, and I do think they are continuing to rebuild, and I think it needs tweaks. I think for Avila to come out and say that this is where we're building, we're looking to add guys, well, then you better have a checkbook behind those words. Otherwise, it's all just a whole bunch of smoke and mirrors, and it's just you blowing hot wind up my ass, and I don't need that.
Man, you got me. It's on the tip of my tongue, that player, too, because he was off and on. He was hurt, and I know exactly. Stephen Weiss, or Weiss.
That's a yes, him, yes.
Yes, God, what a boss, right? God. Pissed me off with that. You had right on the tip of my tongue, and it came. As I'm typing, too, a story came out, too. So, yeah, Weiss, fuck him. God, he was a player that I think you and I were pissed off at because he was never there. We don't like players like that. We don't at all on any level. And I think that we could turn it around quickly with the Red Wings, and that Dennis Cholowski got taken, baby. Good timing on my article. Yeah, he was a bust, and the Kraken took him, so thank gosh. My God, he's gone, baby. Any last words about him? He did nothing. He was a bust. A referendum I think Yzerman had by leaving the 2015 to 2016 first-round picks unprotected, and the Kraken, they took Cholowski. He's gone. See ya. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
You know what? It's going to be interesting to see what the Kraken end up becoming. I feel like for that organization, there's got to be a ton of pressure. Because if you look at what the Las Vegas Knights did their first year, and you look at the way they constructed their roster, I feel like if you're the Seattle Kraken and you get this opportunity, you have to hit it out of the park, right? Like you basically get to start with a gigantic head start that other teams don't get. And instantly, day one, they're coming into the league. They're going to be better than the Detroit Red Wings. They're going to be better than approximately 13 other teams. This team has to basically hit the ground running. Otherwise, I think you have a bad general manager and you might have a bad head coach. And look, I like Ron Francis. I was a huge Ron Francis fan when I was a young kid. Have a whole bunch of his hockey cards. So it's going to be interesting to see what this team does. It'll be interesting to see what Cholowski does. Like, maybe he gets put in a system. Maybe they see something in him. I don't know. Steve Yzerman doesn't see anything in him. And, that was another one of those picks by Ken Holland where I think all of us were kind of scratching our heads. I mean, I think we understood what had to be done to get out from underneath that Pavel Datsyuk contract, but you gave up a really good draft pick who could have been your future to basically move on from Pavel Datsyuk, and then you took a guy who hasn't been able to crack the league and really been able to do a whole lot when he does get that opportunity. So it'll be interesting to see what the Kraken do. Great podcast, sir. Always enjoy your time. Always enjoy recording here on the Detroit Sports Podcast. Doc and Jock rolls along, and baby, the vacation's over. Off season about to be in the past, in the rearview mirror, baby. Good things ahead for DSP. You need to stock up on Red Bull, bro.
No, bro. I'm high on life. You know that.
Life.
And I think the government
and white lines.
And the government has found a way to inject me with their poison, so they know where my whereabouts are, and they know when they push that button, they're just going to be like finding out where I am. You got that cool microchip in you, huh? I got it, exactly. So I'm trying to see if it'll cure my ED. We'll see if it works. Yeah, baby, get something good out of this shit. I'm fully vaccinated.
Is there a button
now,
you can
boys.
hit that makes you hard?
Exactly. No, there's no problem there. It's just I'm too excited, if you know what I mean. I've always been
always pitching a tent.
Always excited, baby.
It's always camping season with John. He's got the tent ready to go.
You look at me and I'm ready for the couch. You know? So we'll see. As I get older, that problem is subsiding. But hey, we'll see what happens. Thank you guys for downloading. Thank you for enjoying another episode of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.